오늘은 신앙과 생명윤리가 맞닿아 있는 중요한 주제, 가톨릭 교회의 인공수정에 대한 입장을 살펴보겠습니다. 부모가 되고 싶은 간절한 소망과 교회의 윤리적 가르침 사이에서 어떻게 균형을 찾을 수 있을까요? 팟캐스트, 지금 시작합니다.
Ever feel like you're caught between a rock and a hard place? Like when you desperately want a family, but the path to get there clashes with your beliefs.
It's a struggle many couples in the Catholic faith face, especially those dealing with infertility and looking at IVF.
Exactly, and that's what we're diving into today. The Catholic Church's stance on IVF.
It's a sensitive topic for sure.
It really is, blending faith, science, and deeply personal choices.
And our goal here isn't to judge, just to understand the why behind the Church's position.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We know the Catholic Church opposes IVF, but the why is fascinating.
Right.
One source we have uses this powerful phrase saying the Church believes conceiving a child should be the result of a sacred union between spouses.
Yeah.
What's that mean, practically speaking?
That phrase, sacred union, it's at the core of Catholic theology.
Okay.
The Church sees children as gifts from God, not a right. And that has huge implications.
Okay.
It suggests that while we have free will, some things are ultimately God's call, including the creation of life.
So bringing this back to IVF, the Church sees those medical procedures as, like, interfering with something sacred.
You got it.
Okay.
The Church is very clear. Procreation should be inseparable from the loving act of marriage.
Right.
It's a reflection of God's love, the spiritual union, something that can't be replicated in a lab.
I see the connection you're making. But IVF often involves more than just the couple.
Sure.
We're talking donors, doctors, embryologists. How does the Church view that aspect?
That's a key point. The Church believes that third-party involvement, whether it's donors or medical professionals, could disrupt the sanctity and natural order of the family unit.
Which ideally is just parents and their children.
Exactly.
So there's a line drawn between the biological act of conception within a marriage and this idea of the parent-child relationship being divinely ordained.
Yes. From the Church's view, they're deeply intertwined. It's about protecting the integrity of those bonds.
Yeah.
You know, parental rights, lineage, what defines family.
That's a really interesting distinction that I hadn't thought about. But what about couples who are struggling with infertility?
Yeah.
Who see IVF as their only hope?
Right.
I'm thinking of the emotional and spiritual toll infertility takes. How does the Church address that suffering?
Well, this is where it gets nuanced. While the Catholic Church stands firm on its IVF stance, it deeply empathizes with those experiencing infertility.
Oh, wow.
It acknowledges their pain. It doesn't dismiss it.
So it's not just a flat-out no without offering comfort or guidance?
Not at all. The Church actually offers this concept of spiritual parenthood.
Okay.
It suggests parenthood isn't only biological, but about the love and commitment we have for a child, regardless of how they come into our lives.
Spiritual parenthood. That really changes the perspective, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests that God might have a different past for us than we expect.
Right.
One source actually mentions Abraham and Sarah from the Bible.
Oh, yeah. They waited decades to have a child. That's a powerful example of faith and patience.
It is. The Church often uses that story to remind us. God's timing isn't always our timing. It's
Right.
not about accepting infertility, but being open to God's will, trusting His plan for us, including how we become parents.
So the Church is encouraging couples to really pray about IVF, maybe seek guidance from their faith.
Yes.
To consider there might be other ways to become parents that fit their beliefs better.
Exactly. It's about bringing a sense of discernment, of surrender to the decision.
I see.
Not rejecting science, but acknowledging the spiritual side of these choices. It needs careful thought.
Okay, this has been so helpful, but we also have to talk about the ethical concerns the Church has with IVF itself. What are the biggest issues for them?
One of the biggest is what happens to embryos created through IVF that aren't implanted.
Oh, right. The unused embryos. That's a huge debate even outside religion.
It is, and for the Catholic Church, believing life begins at conception, discarding those embryos is morally unacceptable.
Makes sense.
It's seen as taking a human life, no matter how developed the embryo is.
Given that, does the Church offer any other solutions for Catholic couples struggling to conceive who want to stay true to their faith?
They do. They strongly encourage adoption.
Okay.
They see it as a beautiful, faith-affirming way to become a parent.
So not just saying what's not allowed, but giving a positive alternative.
Yes. The Church doesn't see adoption as second best. but a true act of love, showing belief that every child is a blessing. It's about giving a loving, stable home to a child who needs one.
That's a powerful message. This source also mentions other ethical worries about IVF. Like, what else does the church have problems with?
Well, they worry IVF could lead to choosing embryos for specific traits, gender, or avoiding certain conditions.
Like the whole designer baby debate.
Exactly. The church argues all human life is sacred, has dignity no matter the genes. Choosing embryos based on certain things devalues those who don't fit that.
It's about protecting the worth of every person, no matter how they were conceived. These are tough issues, no easy answers.
Absolutely. That's why the church encourages those dealing with infertility, considering their options, to talk to their priest, a spiritual advisor, someone trusted in their faith.
Okay.
It's about getting guidance, support as they navigate this.
It's about finding a path that fits their beliefs and gives them peace, which is so important in tough times.
Exactly. These are deeply personal decisions.
Yeah.
Ultimately, each couple has to find what sits right with their conscience and their faith.
It's easy to get caught up in the rules of it all, especially with religious doctrine, instead of really getting the why.
It's true. And here, the why is about some big beliefs.
Yeah.
Creation of life, what makes a family in God's eyes. These aren't just random rules. It comes from really respecting life, wanting to protect how the Catholic faith sees family.
Right. These teachings come from strong values.
Yes. And while the church is firmly against IVF, like we talked about, it offers a way forward for those who feel like parenthood is slipping away.
Adoption, right. Like you said, it's a truly beautiful alternative, not a second best thing.
Exactly. That's key. The church sees adoption as loving, just as sacred as being a biological parent. It stresses the spiritual fulfillment of giving a home to a child in need. It reminds us, family isn't just genes, it's the love and commitment we have.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. Really expands what being a parent means.
It does. And that's something we can all connect with, whether we're facing these choices ourselves or just trying to understand those who are,
This deep dive has been eye-opening. We've gone from the theology of the church's stance on IVF to the ethics, and of course, those other paths to becoming a parent.
It's been great, really thought-provoking. And this is just the start, right? It's about getting curious and thinking more about it all.
Definitely. If you're wrestling with these questions, talk to your priest, a spiritual advisor, even close friends, family. Do your own research, weigh the views, but most importantly, listen to your gut.
Well said. As tech keeps changing, these dilemmas, ethical, spiritual, they'll only get tougher. It's a conversation we need, one that needs compassion, understanding, really listening to each other.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. We hope this gave you a lot to consider. And until next time, keep asking those tough questions and keep searching for those answers that feel right in your soul.